Good morning, everyone. You're listening to WCEG Network. This is the Worldwide Community Empowerment Group. Today, our show is Beyond the Border radio show, where we talk about all things immigration. And you're here with three immigration lawyers, all from Atlanta, Georgia. My name is Audra Doyle, and I'm an associate at Gene Padberg and Associates. And next month, it will actually be Doyle Law. So,
that's
congratulations!
Great.
Thank you. So we just hung my shingle yesterday, and it's coming fast. So I'll be having my own law firm next month. So that's my big news.
Oh, that's amazing! Congratulations!
And we're also here with.
I'm Elizabeth Garvish, and I am the managing member of Garvish Immigration Law Group.
And my name is Oleisa Gorinshteyn. I'm a guest today, and I'm a managing partner at Gorinshteyn Global. We do both immigration and personal injury. So whenever you have a question, please feel free to ask.
Absolutely. We would love to hear from you this morning. We're on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. You can call in or Skype us. Our number is 678-619-1402. We would love for you to ask questions or make comments about what we're talking about today. So let's start off, maybe Elizabeth and Alicia. Let's talk about a conference that you attended recently in Berlin.
Yeah, so we just got back. We have, of course, our Bar Association, American Immigration Lawyers Association. AILA is probably the best bar association ever. I think
it's the gold standard for immigration lawyers.
Oh, yeah,
I mean, for immigration lawyers, but I think for any lawyer, any field of lawyers, the collaboration and the education opportunities and just like helping each other with cases. It's just amazing how collaborative we are. And so we have a wonderful a bar association with various chapters. And there's the Rome District chapter, which is quite large. That is the European, the Middle Eastern type chapter. So it has members from all across the United States and then also throughout Europe and the Middle East. They hold conferences twice a year. So usually one in London and then one maybe in, this year it was Berlin. They've had conferences in Madrid, South Africa, and Johannesburg. And they're really neat because we get to go to this another country, and usually it involves a consular tour. And we have the consular officers at our conference talking about different issues and stuff on panels, which is really amazing. So this year was in Berlin, which was like the most beautiful city, and Alicia and I were there together. And I didn't realize you were going until I was on the committee, so I saw your name. And I was like, I called her up. I was like, hey, let's go get dinner. But so some of the best immigration lawyers were there in an intimate setting, talking about kind of the latest things that are happening in immigration law. Mm-hmm. So there's a couple things that I want to talk about. There was a Forbes article that came out. It's a
really great article.
Stuart Anderson wrote this article. You can look it up. But it basically, they looked at the Department of Labor records, the H-1B records that are published, and they've looked at the denial rates and kind of gone back several years. There's been, generally a denial rate of 6%, 7% at the most, going back 2015, 2016, that has increased to, 34%. Don't count me on that. Look at the article for the exact numbers.
Yeah, so the article breaks it down several ways. It goes by companies. One employer I'm looking now, it says they have an 80% denial rate.
That's
wow.
crazy.
They may think about different counsel.
Oh, yeah.
Sorry.
Well, some of these, here's what's happening.
Sometimes it's the issue, right?
Yes. Yeah. Honestly, it may be, because we all are in the same world right now with this H-1B. And in my office, we call it being nimble. So if you see a trend happening, if you see something that immigration's really not going to like, you don't just keep filing the same type of case over and over. You need to try and be responsive and address whatever you think might be coming down the pipe for your next case.
This is very true, but also what's happening is they are trying to apply the law differently than they've applied before. They're trying
Absolutely.
to, without basis in law or
without changing the law.
regulation,
Exactly.
they are denying cases.
So I think they're changing the law without notice and comment.
Yes. So that's the problem. So if you have, such a crazy increase in denials, and then the trends show that they're going after these third-party contractors that are placing computer and information systems professionals at different projects. So if you look at the 80% cap, Gemini had an 80% denial rate. Like some of these, this is all published in the article. So still, it trickles down.
Yes.
It trickles down to our other clients because they're taking they're applying the law differently, and it's really not fair. So one of the examples of how they're doing things, so there's a Department of Labor publication called the Occupational Outlook Handbook. Now, there's a disclaimer on the Department of Labor website that says this should not be used as any legal authority. It's published on the Department of Labor website.
At the beginning.
So,
Yeah.
what do the USCS adjudicators do in their requests for evidence and denials? They use the Occupational Outlook Handbook and what it says is required for these jobs. And they say, according to the Occupational Outlook Handbook, this bachelor's degree is required in various fields for this position. This doesn't qualify as a special occupation. They're using the very authority that the Department of Labor never intended to be an authority or basis of, a legal, have any legal substance. And so, for example, the definition of a specialty occupation, which the H-1B is for individuals that are entering positions that require at least a bachelor's degree or the equivalent in education and or experience, or the equivalent. And you've got to have a degree in a specific quote unquote specialty. And there's different ways to show this. There's 4 prongs within the regulations. And what they're doing is they're saying, well, if your job does not require a degree in a specific specialty, like one specialty, then it's not a specialty occupation. So if a job, like some of these new and emerging fields like business analytics, some of the other things, even computer systems analyst is all in the Occupational Outlook Handbook. They say, the language says, you must have a degree in information systems, at least a bachelor's degree, but you could have a degree in MBA and maybe some training, or you could have this. Those are equivalencies that, maybe that could work, but they're taking those words and then just kind of throwing that whole category of computer systems analysts, because when we file these H-1Bs, we have to classify the jobs with SOC codes. So they're kind of throwing that away. But there's a way to argue that, but it's one of those things we're just seeing, wow, this kind of a bob and weave, like dodge this and that. It's this they're attacking the computer systems analysts. They're
attacking economists. How can you be an economist without a bachelor's degree?
And they're
The
also
same thing as computer system analysts,
yes.
right?
How
they're
is
also
this possible?
any analyst.
Any
they're going to
analyst
get you.
is under attack.
And it's not. And think about it like this: they're not attacking the qualifications of any of the individuals in these particular type of denials. They are attacking the job that they're entering.
And they're saying that job doesn't need a degree. You don't really have to have a degree in a specific specialty to do this job. The job does not require it. And so number one thing that bothers me is that they keep saying only one degree is enough, is what you can have. And there can be a few degrees, and I've argued this before, like not every college in the United States classifies or names their degrees the same thing.
Yeah. And
But
also,
they have the same core curriculum
within
if you
the
look at those
definitions.
names.
Oh, sorry, guys. My phone just went off. Sorry. Within the definition of specialty occupation, it says, or the equivalent. So you've... Sorry. Or
Yes,
the
it does.
equivalent. Yes. Sorry about that. I thought my phone was off. it says, or the equivalent, which means that there's got to be some room for equivalent types of training degrees to fill in. It can't just be one thing, but they're really kind of honing in on that. The other thing we've seen in the last 2 years is if there's 4 levels of wages. So with the H-1B, you can you must pay what's considered to be the prevailing wage. And there's 4 levels within the DOL database. So certain entry-level jobs, will qualify for like a level 1 wage. And the way that you kind of figure out the wage is there's a DOL worksheet. And you'll go through, and so you look at the minimum requirements for the job. It's just kind of like you give it a point. If it's just a bachelor's degree, that's all that's required, no experience.
No
you look
supervising other workers is another
and no
one.
like certification, supervising or special
No
requirements
special
at a point.
duties, right.
So you can go through this worksheet and you can kind of see, how much experience is required. Is there, supervisory? Is there any special skills that are required? And then you can get all the way up to a level 4 possibly. And so you need to do that determination, or your attorney would do that determination once you go into, you're starting to apply for the job. You provide the minimum requirements for the job, go through the DOL worksheet, figure out what wage level. Now, of course, there are certain jobs that are professional jobs, specialty occupation jobs, that are entry level.
Yes.
I mean, you got to start somewhere, right?
For instance, a teacher.
A physician.
Yes, a physician.
An attorney.
Some doctors who just graduate from med school are going to go take an entry-level job as a doctor.
Well, they'll have to train.
And I think that they may just be paid a level 1 wage. They're not supervising
if they're in residency
anybody.
training, they can get an H-1B
They have the basic
too.
degree. They have all the basic stuff. I would put that doctor at a level 1 wage.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. That's the appropriate
anybody
wage.
right out of a master's degree program going into a professional position. We have lots of people that kind of are on OPT. They're optional practical training in level 1. So what the government is saying, and they're denying on this basis, is that if you're putting someone into a level 1 job and they're paying them a level 1 salary, then that's not considered a specialty occupation because it's entry level, which makes no sense.
They're trying to deny. They're not denying my cases on that.
Well, I've had
hope you're fighting back
one
really
denial that I
hard.
haven't been able to fix, and that was one of the reasons for denial.
But it makes you to bleed, I think, because what they do, they actually send those multiple RFEs, right? Requests for evidence, and they ask you to prove it in each and every case.
Yes.
Because, for example, in my firm, what we do in H-1B, like we just sent out the very bare minimum cover page with no legal argument at all. So in fact, I found it very useful in the past where I would just submit it and it's really clear for the officer what's in there.
Yes.
It meets all the legal requirements. And now it seems like you have to kind of address those issues ahead of time.
Yeah.
What do you think?
I try to. I quit doing a cover letter because they never read my cover letter. So I just have everything organized in the way that the regulations require. And any legal arguments are woven into my employer support letter. So we talk about, what the employer requires for the job, and then the employer states that this is appropriate for this position. And I feel that if you're an employer in that field, they are the expert that says what is an industry-specific requirement. So I feel okay with that.
That is true. So basically, your employer support letters became a little bit more sophisticated.
That's right. That's right. They did. And so I'm still getting RFEs, and I've just gotten one where they're arguing level 1 wage. I thought that we had put that to bed, but apparently not. So I've got to pull out my old level 1 wage argument about doctors and teachers. They're going to be paid level 1 wages.
I made that argument and they denied me on one case. I mean, I've only had one.
I wonder if they denied you for a different issue, but then they just threw that in anyway.
Well, they
I
denied.
think you could prevail.
No, I mean, this was the exact same job as another one we'd already had approved. It was like one, it was just another one officer treated it differently than the other officer. But also we had an expert opinion letter, that went through the detailed duties of the job and why it requires a degree in a specific field, and from a professor And so they said that this is what they're also doing with expert testimony. They're saying, they deny based on, well, if this expert has not walked into the company,
Yes.
saw this person performing their duties, how could they be an expert?
I
so
got a
they're
denial
attacking
like that.
Yeah, so they're attacking on that basis. There's lots of ways. Now, we're seeing these trends. These are like things that never happened before. So we're seeing these trends. So we're having to like adjust how we do things. And it's, it takes a lot more time, to prepare, prepare these H-1Bs.
The
I'm
level of
looking
detail
at
is
everything.
astounding that we have to go into.
I'm
with these
looking at, I've got an
responses.
RFE right now for computer systems analysts for the very reason they quoted the Occupational Handbook and they said, this job, you can have a master's in business plus technical training, or you could have a bachelor's in a I think it's like a liberal arts field plus technical training. So they're hanging their hat on this OOH, which shouldn't be used as legal authority. And I think we did provide an expert opinion with that one from the IT, head IT guy. But yeah, now I'm really worried, and I think the clients are really worried, and it's just kind of crazy because what used to work doesn't work anymore.
Yeah, and
So-
what used to be the most standard of all of our working visas is under a huge attack.
I don't know
from
why
this
Trump is
administration.
attacking the H-1B.
But don't you find it really funny? Because when we went to the conference in Berlin, we had a really great meeting with the German American Chamber of Commerce and their director. And the funny thing is, while we struggle here, right, trying to bring international workforce into the U.S., the professional one, right? And we're trying to figure out how to fight the USCIS on various different legal grounds. Now, totally different thing happens in Germany. What they do, they actually open their borders to all the professionals. Moreover, they said that if you'd like to learn something and get a degree, please come over. We're going to pay for it as a country. We want you to stay here. We want you to learn our language. We want you to learn the profession, and we want you to stay here.
So they're attracting highly skilled workers.
Exactly.
Yeah, and then the one thing in Berlin, we went on a tour, but we learned the population. This was one of the fastest growing cities back. Before all the world wars, and they had in city planning had kind of plan for a lot of
For future projects,
huge, just a huge population, and what this was going to be one of the world's largest cities. But the population is very, it's not. They have lots of space in Berlin.
They
lots
actually
of buildings
say that
are
Berlin
abandoned.
is an empty city.
Yes.
Wow.
Yeah, they say it's empty because if you kind of clear all the tourists off the streets, then the city is going to be empty. And they're really concerned. That's why they're saying that please come over. Please do something.
And the birth rates are lower in Europe. I think Germany has a really low birth rate.
And remember we talked about all the, computer intelligence and how robots will come and do certain things.
Yeah.
And they actually say that Germany right now implemented whatever is possible at this stage of the process. So all the robots are here now. They just don't have the living workforce.
Wow.
They need people, humankind. That's why, a few years back with all that refugee crisis, they invited all those refugees in because they understand if they don't have people, Germany stops its existence in the form and shape they do exist now.
They also said they're trying to get retired people back.
Yes, it was
People
funny.
retired, and
Yeah.
so they're
It's just such
asking.
a different situation than I think we're facing.
Well,
here in the
we're
United
facing the
States.
same type of crisis in the United States. Not our government doesn't, want people here, but there's a need. There's no way.
But do you believe that we just lose perspective?
Absolutely.
We
Brain drain.
exactly. We just stopped understanding.
And what is so frustrating to me is that people the most talented, the best and the brightest come over here for college and university. They stay here 4 years. They learn the culture, they learn American business systems and everything. And then they're basically kicked back out. They cannot even get a working visa to stay here and use the things that they learned, they were trained with in our universities, in our American companies. And I think that's just a shame.
Yeah. I mean, there was
Not good.
also, because even the little, there's just been so much, going back to the student visas, exchange visitors, there was, a new memorandum, a new policy memorandum, which is like the Trump administration is just using policy, executive order and policy memorandums to change the law, basically, because they're not going through Congress for anything. But there was a little bit of a loophole for these students where they are here under a duration of status, which means there's no date certain on their I-94 card.
So they don't have to leave at a specific date.
They wouldn't accumulate unlawful presence if there was maybe an inadvertent overstay or violation of status. So a new policy came out that says that loophole's over, that they will, if there are violations of status, they could at some point be accumulating unlawful presence and they, be barred for 3 to 10 years.
And when we're talking about violations, we're talking about somebody didn't press the right button in the computer at the school, or they, their company made a mistake and paid them maybe the wrong salary for 2 days, and then they fixed the mistake. Little technical problems that used to be able to be corrected cannot be corrected anymore. They call that a violation of status, and really serious, terrible consequences are happening. But the good news is that I think it's been enjoined for now. Is that what y'all have heard? There is a lawsuit going on. Federal court has enjoined that rule for now. So hooray.
Yeah, so
I'm very happy.
Good. I mean, I had to send somebody home, his mother brought him over here. His mother brought him over here on F2 many years ago, and
which is a dependent student visa status.
And then we had an employer sponsor him, and I actually did it pro bono because it's a church, and we did the perm, and then and I told him he had to go. I said you can wait until we have everything approved, and then you can just go back home for the consular interview. But I had to send him out because of that policy memorandum. Right. And then here's what just happened, which just goes to show you, right now we're living under a perfection standard. So as attorneys right now, we must be perfect. But are you perfect?
No.
I mean, obviously,
no. I wish I was, but
it's not in human nature to be perfect.
I don't know anybody that's perfect.
On the application, the labor certificate, I'm just saying, I'm talking about all the mistakes that we've made in our office, which, I mean, we used to be able to possibly fix these.
Yes.
But on the application for the labor certification, for some reason, my assistant or whoever, and we all missed it. Every lawyer in the office reviews, the employer reviews, and the foreign worker reviews, the ETA 9089. But there's a drop-down box for country of citizenship and country of birth. So country of birth was UK, United Kingdom. Country of citizenship, unfortunately, we put United States. But why would we be filing a foreign labor certification application?
It's so obvious that's a typo.
Why is there
it's a typo. It's not even a mistake. It's a typo.
So they could have audited the case.
They're even next door to each other. Somebody clicked the wrong thing. So it's something so
they could
tiny
have
and
audited
simple.
the case.
Yes.
Or sent,
Yep.
They didn't. They flat out denied it. So we have to start all over from the beginning. I did a motion to reconsider, but and actually the case law is not that great on this, but.
Well, let me make you feel better. I filed a prevailing wage determination, and right now it's taking about 100 days to get it done. So finally it came back. I'm like, great, we're ready. Just like Elizabeth, we have multiple layers of review in the office. And there was a typo on my prevailing wage determination. And we had inadvertently clicked bachelor's degree required instead of master's degree required.
Yeah, you got to start over.
But you know what? They're from India. And so that would make them an EB3. And actually, the line for EB3 is faster than the line for EB2.
It is?
So we're going ahead with recruitment.
Okay.
Yes,
Very nice.
we
So
are.
it played out pretty well.
Yes, but it was the same thing. You know, we had to have this big conversation like, okay, if we fix this mistake, it's going to be probably 6 months. Almost 6 months before we can even get back to
But
the point where we
he'll
were.
probably be in a subsequent job down the road and
I
have
agree.
it and be able
and
to
have
recapture his
another
priority
one.
date. So maybe
and I
it's
said,
better
so your
just to-
choice is to keep the earlier date, so go move forward and have an earlier priority date, or to just start all over. You know, and so one tiny boo, but they reviewed it, I reviewed it, everybody reviewed it, nobody caught it, just like that, Elizabeth. So I feel you. I mean, one little thing.
And the thing is, like, you know, we have to be very particular in our job.
We
because
are. I feel like we
yeah,
definitely are. That's how we're successful lawyers.
exactly.
But as you
attention
say-
to details is the probably number one skill that we all have, because without the skill, I mean, there's totally impossible to practice.
Yeah.
All that sort of information that you have to keep on top of, you know, makes it, you know, result in those various mistakes if you miss something.
Right.
You know, I mean, it's just like there's always going to be like some like typo error, and generally, you know, you can. I mean, even on the adjustment applications, I have people review. I had an interview just last week, and you know, my clients like we asked them like any children all around the world, how many times have you been married? Like I'm like, because I've already been burned in the past when somebody says they've been married twice, and then like at the interview they say, oh, 4 times.
Yes.
Yes,
What?
we're like, what? What?
No, and that happened.
I think it's happened to all of us. Something
that happened
like that.
just last week, and I was like, you know, when he said I've been married 3 times, I was like, well, we only have one. You didn't tell me about that first. He's like, well, that was
We
some
have
really
a case right now.
that was
It's
a really
super
long
funny.
time ago. I guess it doesn't matter if you. I mean, and he doesn't even. You know, the officer was really nice about correcting it.
Yeah.
I mean, she gave me her email.
I'm sure the officer can see your face like, oh boy.
Oh, I
you
know.
But it doesn't really matter. Like for right
But
now,
I'm like,
I do have a
sometimes you
client.
can't. We can't even. You know, because sometimes clients aren't super sophisticated. They're very
Yes.
nervous.
Yep.
They
They're
don't
scared
really
to tell
understand
us everything.
Yeah. I had another one. I've had some crazy.
Actually, I had an interview yesterday.
Uh-huh.
It was so funny because young parents, right? They just 2 months ago they welcomed their first child. It's an adjustment case based on marriage.
What better evidence than a precious baby?
Exactly. And we sit in front of the officer, and officer asks this question: Do you have any children anywhere in the world?
Uh-huh.
And he says no, and she says no. And I'm like, officer,
Alicia, are you like,
can I call for a clarification of this question? And officer's like, what's going on? Like, do you mind rephrasing the question? Because I think they did not quite understand. And then she rephrased, and we're like, oh, we have a child. We have a newborn.
remember that
Yeah, it was
time
just
when
2
you
months
just had a
ago.
baby?
Well, yeah, but
That was
that's.
so
I think
funny.
that's understandable when you're like sleep deprived. And stuff.
But
Yeah.
it's so funny because, you know, people undergo so much stress. So sometimes they just like, you know, completely lack this understanding of their own situation, their
Yes.
own life.
My
And
clients.
do you have any children anywhere in the world? And they're thinking, okay, anywhere else besides
Exactly.
here.
Yes, that's
And
true.
so
That's
you
what they
know they're-
said. We don't have children anywhere in the world. We have a child
We
here.
have one here. Yeah, they're not anywhere.
Yeah.
They're right here.
Yeah, I had my clients last week as well. Another interview, but both of them couldn't get the date of their marriage right,
Ugh.
which is fine, I
Yeah.
guess. I mean, it's on the certificate. They have and they actually have a 3-week-old and a 1.5-year-old. But I was just like, you know,
How about a client who, for the past year, is trying to obtain all divorce decrees? And at first, we started with just one prior divorce decree because petitioner in a marriage case, told me that he's been married only once. By now, a year later, we already have 5 divorces.
what?
Oh,
Yes,
my
we
goodness.
have 5 divorces, and actually we have another one, but we cannot find the divorce decree for the earliest one. And when I talk to a client and I tell them that, look, I need to know, when I ask you, I need to know all of that. It's not that you provide me information about the most recent one. Okay. I need to know about all of them. People don't understand.
Right.
And now here's the funniest thing. Normally, if you cannot, if the person does not remember something, right? You go through the government agency and you obtain the information through the government agency. Now, this person does not remember when and where his first divorce occurred.
My. Don't you feel like a detective at that point where you have to ask them
Very much
guided questions like, okay, when you were 18, where were you?
Yes.
What were you doing? Were you in college? And you have to draw it out of them because people
is
really
crazy.
forget or they
Yes.
block it from their mind somehow.
Probably. And he's like, I don't remember who filed this divorce. I don't remember under which name because, like his wife had, her maiden name and then married name and this and that. So I don't remember. And she used variations of her first name. So we don't know all that. He gave me the about 10-year period when they could file for divorce.
Oh.
And he said, I don't even remember whether it was in Georgia or not.
Oh, my.
So it's Mission Impossible type of thing.
Right.
We're still looking.
Wow.
I'm like, is it possible for you to find your ex-wife and maybe ask her?
Yes.
Maybe she has it?
Yes. And Alicia, maybe say, you need a private detective.
Yes. At this
To
point, this is how I
go
feel.
figure that out.
Yeah.
Yes.
And the bad thing is he's so sick that, he's in and out of the hospital. And he's like, can we please file as soon as possible because his current wife is probably going to be his last wife.
Now, that leads me to an interesting question, Elizabeth. So here's her situation. She has a client with multiple divorces. She's having a really hard time getting all the decrees. What if she files the case and lists all the divorces, like there were 6, and list as much as possible, provide 5 of the 6 divorce decrees? Do you think that this case is going to be denied down the road because you failed to turn in that last decree? You've had some experience, with
I think the
missing a
officer,
document.
I've had 2. I don't think initially it's going to get denied before interview. Although there was a new memorandum that came out, we've been a victim of it already, and I've heard a lot of people. There was a memorandum that said that you must file your application with all supporting documentation required. And they published these lists on the USCIS website. And so it's basically the no RFE memo, the no request for evidence memo. So giving officers the discretion to deny a case without asking for additional documents. One little tiny document missing, they can deny. They talk about the policy, behind this memorandum is to prevent skeletal applications. So just filing the forms and just bare bones and then waiting for a request for evidence. But what's happening is there's a lot of denials on cases where, one thing is missing. One tiny thing, one form, maybe the improper form of the birth certificate. We've heard that Canadians have a short form and a long form, or might forget, they just might forget something and they're denying these cases. Sometimes they're pending 8, 9, 10 months.
And you paid thousands of dollars.
You pay thousands, you'll pay for $1,225 and $535 if it's a marriage case.
Those are just to immigration. And
many times you may not be eligible to file this case again. And you may have to, I have some clients that this happened to, and I have to send them abroad now, and their family's going to be separated for a year just because we didn't photocopy one form from the principal's application and put it with the dependent application. And they decided not to, issue a request for evidence or anything. So, yeah. And then what does the client do? And of course, the clients are going to, that's what I'm talking about, the standard of perfection. I mean, we do our best. We do everything that we can, to make sure we have layers of review in our office. But it happens.
Yeah.
And so that, I really think this is unjust. It's complete injustice. It's really putting,
just putting higher burden on
non-criminals,
us.
anyone, the issue that I have is they have, the husband's a legal permanent resident now, and his small child and wife, were denied based on a missing document, and now they have to leave the country and wait outside. And the processing times to kind of get the application going for outside, I don't know, could it be a year or more? I'm not even sure. I filed the application to like
outrageous.
The I-824
from this memo.
Oh,
like
that.
From, you know, one small mistake results in how many years of trouble, hardship for the family, thousands of dollars. It's ridiculous. And I keep wondering, something's got to give, you know, something's got to change, or we've got to have some realistic people back in Washington, D.C. to make some policies, because this can't go on this way.
I think in this regard, you know, we have to also mention something that if before a client would come to me for a consultation, and let's say it's a sophisticated client who would say, well, I understand all that. I have few clarifications. I received this legal advice. Now, what do you think? Can I file it myself? So before, I would say something that it is up to you, because if you feel so, you can file. Right now, I tell everybody that, you know, there's a very high chance, there's high probability that they're going to lose the 1760 US dollars that they spend on filing the case, because most likely they're going to miss one of those important documents in their initial filing, and the immigration office is going to deny your case, and then you will have to spend that amount of money on top of paying for the attorney in order to refile and get it done. So right now, I would 100% in 100% consultations, tell them that you do need an attorney. It's not the time when you can play around. In fact, I just, this past week, I had a client who returned back to me. They didn't listen to me in the first place. They filed themselves. They returned back to me with a denial of I-130, actually denying the case because they submitted improper divorce decree from Nigeria.
Wow.
Not from the court that Department of State requires. And they were like, so what's going on? What do we do? You know, husband who's a beneficiary, he's out of status. And of course, like, you know, right now, we do understand that most likely...
Refile it fast.
Yes.
But they don't have this divorce decree again. They have to go back to Nigeria.
They better pay a hotshot Nigerian lawyer to skip over to the court and get that thing right away.
Figure out how to do that.
Yes.
And I asked them if they can probably, like, if they missed one of the steps in, like, you know, finalizing the divorce, maybe they can go back, refile it with that proper court, and the proper court will backdate the original date of the divorce. And they said there's no way. So the court is going to come up with a new divorce date.
Oh no, which messes up their current. So it looks like they've committed bigamy.
Exactly.
Oh my goodness.
So they will have to remarry here and then refile. And most likely, you know, it's going to be insufficient amount of time before the case is going to in front of the immigration judge.
Right. Because the second part of this thing where you have to be perfect, and we all just discussed nobody's perfect. The second part of that is, well, you're not perfect and you actually did mess up your case. So now we're going to send you over to the immigration judge. We're going to put you in removal proceedings. Many of our clients who come to us, this is their one chance, right, to fix their case. And so once they get on this path towards a green card, they may let their non-immigrant status go. They may stop working in their H-1B case, which is perfectly permissible. However, if anything goes wrong, they only have this green card application going. If it is denied, then they will be given a notice to appear before the immigration judge. And that sends their case over to the bad, dark land of immigration court. Nobody wants to go to immigration court. And once you're there, the judge will have to adjudicate your green card case. Basically, you can't get out. Your whole case is then before the judge. And if you've watched any sort of news whatsoever, you've seen how long it takes for your case to be finished in immigration court and how tough it is in immigration court. And just so you know, none of us go regularly to immigration court. Oleisa, you don't do immigration?
Well, I kind of steered away from immigration litigation only because, you know, there was this period of time a few years back and it was ongoing. It started during the Obama administration. The deportation numbers skyrocketed.
Yes.
And Atlanta Immigration Court was among those courts that were considered the worst courts in the nation, with 98% denial
Of asylum.
of asylum.
Yeah.
And,
Still that way.
it's still that
I
way.
think we're
And I'll tell you even more. I mean, on everything else, if you take the statistics judge by judge, their denial rates are very high. It's above 70%, like
Right.
70,
It's
80, 90%.
one of the worst in the nation,
Yeah,
for sure.
And it does not only involve asylum. It's across the board situation with all applications for relief. So knowing that, I have good training on other immigration law practices, I just steered away from that because, it's really difficult and I do understand that everybody has right to have counsel represent them, and that, yes, people still need to fight their cases. But again, face a situation where poor family
We got 1 minute.
comes in and, they have this, let's say, certain amount of money saved for the case, and then you tell them upfront that the case is going to be denied.
Yeah.
You're not on a strong side of the cases that getting approval in Atlanta Immigration Court, unfortunately.
And so some people move. Some people
people
move
move to different
a more
jurisdictions.
sympathetic jurisdiction. That definitely can happen. But it is a very hard time, I think, to be an immigration litigation lawyer who regularly practices removal defense, is what we call
Yes.
it.
Although they're fierce attorneys.
fantastic.
Yeah, they're fantastic, and they say we're going to keep
but
fighting, keep fighting.
We have to look at our own personalities and see if we can
Exactly.
handle it. If
Exactly.
you can handle day after day breaking people's hearts, and that's not. That's not what I want to do.
Me neither. And, I would like to have certain achievements as a professional as well.
Right.
So
Not
it
just
makes
all losses.
Exactly.
And it's nothing wrong with those lawyers. They're excellent lawyers. It's just the nature of the system right now.
It's just if you can emotionally handle it. I
Right.
mean,
Yeah.
I can, my emotional, we try to, and there's a whole thing called secondary trauma where you hear your clients' lives, their lives and suffering, and the atrocities that they've experienced. Because many times, for asylum, you're seeking a benefit because you're fleeing persecution. There's many victims of trafficking, victims of crime that have had atrocious things happen to them. So we have to kind of take this in, review evidence. That's, and that's sometimes really hard for attorneys to deal with, is secondary trauma, which it is a real thing. Just like first responders that see every day in their job see
Terrible situations.
terrible things. I mean, someone has died in their arms. I mean, how do you go back to your happy life after that? So many times, for me, I have, I make the choice of what kind of practice I want to have based on how I can emotionally handle things, and more power to all of our colleagues that do the immigration court work and really make a difference. I mean,
They get all my respect.
I refer lots of cases, and they just hit it out of the park and do an amazing job. I think it takes a really special person to be able to do that kind of law. And you have to know yourself. But in my entrepreneurs group, I met a lady who her business is counseling and coaching first responders. And so I talked to her and I was like, that would be really applicable to
Immigration attorneys.
Immigration attorneys. And so I'm involved with another group on, Association of Other Immigration Attorneys, and we're planning a conference. And we're thinking about we know about the law, but what other tools and resources can we give to lawyers, and somebody like that who's going to come and talk about, how to deal with this trauma and stress that we all kind of face in our lives right now. And I think it's really wonderful that we have a supportive group of lawyers that are we know what everyone else is dealing with, because this last 2 years has been a definite departure from how my life was before,
I agree.
and how my practice was, everything. So I think we're all kind of experiencing,
Okay.
you know, just the trauma, and and I think your choice and what you want to do. We still have to think about our lives and everything. But so lots of fun changes going on. I don't know. Were we taking a break or we just?
I think we can keep on going.
Okay.
Yeah. So we were talking about, removal defense and how if your case is denied, there's a very good chance that you would get put into removal proceedings with the court. And once you get to the court, it's a whole new world. So I call my area of practice happy immigration, because my clients are happy when they leave me. They leave with a green card. They leave with their work permit or their work authorization. They get to remain in the United States. And so these days, Elizabeth said, for the past 2 years, it's been a huge sea change. And my side of immigration law seems under attack from every direction. And it's been really tough to maintain that positive outlook, and I think it's going to change again. It's got to change again. And I've started to see some rumblings from Congress about how things are going, which is making me very encouraged. For instance, Congress, I think right now they're writing a sign-on letter to USCIS, and they're asking for these statistics of how many denials they're actually having, asking for more information, like why are you making these policies and things like that. So it seems to me that Congress, although immigration is an administrative agency, is under the purview of the executive branch, Congress is starting to look over and say, this is not going very well. We made these laws that you're supposed to be following, and you're not doing that anymore. So thank goodness our system of checks and balances may come into play and help us and help our clients.
And another big thing that probably we need to mention today is this new memo that concerns the good moral character and the marijuana use and employment in the industry. That was just recently published back in April, the late April. So what's going on right now? We do all know that during the past few decades, was this major shift in the approach how the United States, certain states, see the medical and recreational use of marijuana. So at this point, we have 33 states that legalized medical use of marijuana, and about 10 states that legalized recreational use. And also just last year, Canada became nationwide a recreational use country, which is big as well. So now what happens? Certain states did allow the manufacturing, sales, and use of both medical and recreational marijuana.
So it's permissible under state law.
It's permissible.
And that's the key.
It's not considered a criminal misconduct. So people can just go ahead, register, grow,
sell, have a store
in different types of form and shape, use, buy, and it's all good and fine.
Yeah.
Now, when it's not good and fine, is that federal law still considers marijuana as a Schedule I controlled substance. What it means that it's criminally punished to be associated with Schedule I controlled substance, period. Now, if the person is not citizen of the United States, and that concerns everybody, non-immigrants and immigrants who are in the U.S., who are lawful permanent residents with green cards, who lawfully reside in the U.S., if they cross the border and they seek readmission back to the United States, now there's a huge issue that they may be found inadmissible and their entry may be denied to the United States. If they are lawful permanent residents, their case is immediately sent to the immigration court, and they have to fight there for their right to remain in the United States. So there's big confusion right now among all the people attorneys, state law, federal law, like what's going on. If, let's say, there's a dispensary in Colorado and there are certain non-immigrants who are lawfully employed at the dispensary, now if they go on vacation to Mexico, they won't be able to easily come back to the United States. Mm-hmm. During that conference in Berlin, there was this interesting fact that somehow CBP officers at the border, they do have lists of names of people who are employed at the dispensaries. Yes.
What?
Yes.
Oh, my
somehow.
goodness.
Nobody knows exactly how, but there's a situation now. So what's the best tip?
Wow.
Yeah.
Are we in communist country or wow?
Yeah.
Nazi
so
Germany where
what-
they have list of people?
What the memorandum said is that if you have any kind of offense, I don't know if it does it say reason to believe. If there's any kind of offense in the past, arrest or offense, or reason to believe that you're going to be working in the marijuana industry,
Because
or,
they have this list. It can
Yeah.
be reason to believe.
or you enlist an employer as like your employer
or
might be
you wear a shirt depicting cannabis.
Yep.
Or it says
Or you have a cool necklace with a
or
leaf.
you have a cool necklace.
Yeah.
Or your picture in social media.
but
Anything.
and you can also
you smell.
if you admit the elements of a crime,
Yes.
even in an adjustment of status interview,
Yeah.
you can be
Found inadmissible. Yes.
based on the criminal issue. So it's very, very, very tricky. It's one of those things. You could be doing something quite legal, but for the purposes of federal immigration, you are not going to ever be able to naturalize.
Yes.
And you may not be able to get your green card. And there may be an offense that happened 25 years ago in college. And that's gonna be really problematic
I
for
think
a lot
it's
of
not
people.
that dramatic for the naturalization purposes because they would look back. I hope so that they're going to look back for the statutory period only,
which
No.
is 5 years.
I
which
don't
is
think
5
that.
years.
I don't
I
think
mean,
so.
they definitely going to consider, but whether they're going to use it against the person, if the person never departed the U.S. and didn't seek readmission back to the U.S. Upon using the marijuana or upon engagement in sorts of controlled substance activities, if the person remained in the U.S., they just need to be clear for 5 years. In terms of their employment or any association with, because it's really funny how the controlled substance trafficking is pretty significant criminal offense, and that if you work in a dispensary in a legal way, in a legal dispensary, you're aiding and abetting.
Right.
So you're
Yeah.
a trafficker.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. So I've done several Know Your Rights talks to different student groups over the years. And last year I came upon this really great YouTube video. It's called Know Your Rights, Immigration, Cannabis, and the Federal Government. And it's a great little YouTube video that talks about this exact issue. And it's interesting, the video came out well before this memo, but it basically says, do not have anything to do with the cannabis industry.
Yes.
That is the takeaway that I tell these students. I know that it's a booming industry, but as a non-immigrant or even possibly as a permanent resident, that is not for you. You do not need to have anything to do with that in any way. No smoking, no using, no selling, no distributing, no growing.
No, nothing.
Nada.
Yeah, no association whatsoever. And we
Whatsoever.
actually, during the conference, we discussed those scenarios where, let's say, a married couple where husband is a U.S. citizen registering a dispensary and wife leaves inside the house that is on the territory of dispensary, she becomes inadmissible.
Wow.
So she won't be able to get her naturalization because she's in close proximity to it. So actually, no association with marijuana at all.
Yeah.
And I mean, it also concerns all other controlled substances, But since, we're not talking about all other
yeah.
controlled substances.
The legalization of that industry has created so much confusion.
That is
and
right.
state laws versus federal laws, but federal law controls our immigration, agency in the United States. That is what is in control. So you do not need to trust in the state laws. That's great for U.S. citizens and people who live in those states. But if that's not you, then stay away. Mm-hmm.
That is true.
Yeah, I mean, and they were talking about, I know certain, even people that are one of their clients in their investor visa. So they are coming here, starting a company that's doing marketing services or maybe doing maintenance services or something like that. And one of their main clients is a marijuana dispensary.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Then that investor visa won't happen.
Yes.
Any investment in that
same
industry
thing.
won't happen
How
for a non-immigrant
draconian
visa.
is this?
Yeah, if
Do
the
you feel like this
person-
is just so out there, or is it just me?
I think, it will grow to a certain extent when everybody will understand that we need a certain reform
Yes.
that will unify application of the rule across the board. If it's illegal, it's illegal. If it's legal, then look, it's got to be legal.
Yeah,
because
this
if
could go to
somebody
the
from
Supreme
Canada
Court.
goes to the United States because
Yeah.
there's this conference on cannabis or whatever that is held in Colorado, they will be denied their visas because of the reason
Or their entry.
their entry, their visas, because if they cite the reason that they're going to this conference, they're going to be denied this visa.
It's all going to depend how CBP wants to apply this
CBP is
policy.
Customs and Border Protection.
Customs Border
Guys
Protection.
at the airport.
But they're employees of the federal government.
Right. Yeah.
And they're not,
and they're law
not the most
enforcement.
lenient,
So I
right?
would say they're going to be pretty tough on that. They've got some meat to use, get their teeth into and use that. But I think all of these things that we're talking about, this policy memorandum on the required evidence for applications, this new policy for the marijuana, the H-1B attack, skyrocketing denial rates, no change in the laws. Level ones are not considered special occupation. And then now we're also, it's all just a little like this attack on immigrants. Basically, this administration just wants to make it so hard for anyone to immigrate to the U.S., for anyone to, stay here to do any of this stuff. It's kind of crazy. And we're also seeing that as immigration lawyers and as applicants, for benefits, they have cut off all liaison activity with our bar association, AILA. They have made it impossible by just changing little things that they used to accommodate us. For example, I have a client that they're moving to Ireland, so he wanted to do a re-entry permit. So he's going to be gone for 2 years, maybe come back, but he wants to save his green card. So we file a re-entry permit, so that allows him, because of assignment abroad, to be able to, stay out of the U.S. and not lose his green card, and come on back when he's done, and be a permanent resident again. So we did that, and part of that requirement is biometrics. They had to get out of the country fast, and they were leaving, and there was just some delays in getting the application filed. The biometrics didn't come in time before they were leaving, so I said, well, go ahead and leave, and then next time you come back, we'll just do biometrics. We'll reschedule. But they've now moved from Atlanta, and they basically when they're coming back to the U.S., they're coming back to Baltimore to be with family. That's where they're staying because they don't have their home in Atlanta anymore. So we tried to change the biometrics appointment to Baltimore and reschedule it. No, we won't accommodate that request. And then, so they're coming back to Baltimore, and I was like, well, maybe you could try to walk in because we've been able to walk in the past.
Allowed.
You can't walk in anymore. You
No.
can't walk in Atlanta.
Nope.
On the website in Baltimore, it says you can't walk in. So my clients have to come back, go to Baltimore, fly, and they're probably busy. They're coming back for holidays, Thanksgiving, things like that. They've got to fly to Atlanta to do biometrics.
Which takes, what, 10 minutes?
Yeah.
A 10-minute appointment.
And what is the shift in policy? Because why? I've sent people to walk in with not on their day. I sent people to walk in early. I sent people to walk in different offices. Years and years and years and years and years I've been doing this. But now we can't do that. It's absolutely ridiculous.
And talking about the new practices, we have to also mention that there's this new naturalization interview practice here in Atlanta that we all had. Yeah.
I despise it. Let me just put myself on the record. It is awful.
It is.
It's
It is
awful.
pretty awful. So whoever is familiar with the USCIS building in Atlanta knows that the first floor was historically used for the InfoPass purposes. What is InfoPass? It's informational appointment where you could come and talk to the information officer and get basic information about the case status, the case processing, file any inquiries if there's any delay. You could resolve any issues with them, right?
Like you bring a letter and say, this went to the wrong address. You keep sending it to things like that.
One of those things.
Little problems.
Obtain certain stamps in your passport extending your status. And many other things, including if there's a mistake made by the USCIS, we just discussed it recently. You could just, as an attorney, come over and refile and bring it to the attention of the supervisor, who would probably, assist you with resolving the issue right on spot. So now USCIS decided to change it. They eliminated the InfoPass practice whatsoever. So, there's no such thing as to come to the InfoPass right now and try to get certain information or follow up on the case status. They left it for certain very, very limited circumstances. And, if there's any interest, we can discuss it later. But this entire floor is now free for some use, and USCIS didn't find any better, but decided to use this area for the naturalization interviews.
It's supposedly a pilot program, so maybe it'll go back if they decide it wasn't not workable. But
yes, everybody's pretty
terrible.
skeptical, including officers, because there's how many? Like 11 windows, right?
Yeah, all crowded together.
All crowded together with the general public sitting in the common area in between of those windows. So
there's no privacy.
There's no privacy whatsoever. And there's no soundproofing of anything because the windows are basically with plastic glass, I think.
Yeah.
And, people can see each other and discuss those personal information and very important facts of their lives in front of the general public. And the interesting part is that at first they call an applicant to come by the window and take their biometrics. So they ask all those general questions, the name and date of birth and place of birth and stuff like that. So they capture the biometrics and then they tell you sit down and wait for another officer to call you for the test.
There's not even enough chairs for everyone to sit down.
Yes, that's true.
So let's just start. Okay, keep going.
Yeah. So now you sit down back and wait in this crowded area with not enough chairs and where the usage of the mobile phone is prohibited. If you're an attorney and you get stuck there for 2 hours,
there's a mobile phone police that will come by.
Yeah, life stops right there and then.
Yep.
You cannot work. You cannot talk on a phone. You cannot do your research. You're just you can meditate probably.
Yeah. It's a little too noisy for meditation.
I know. So you have to practice. So now the next step, the applicant is called for the English and civics test. They have a chance to, and again, it's so funny because it's loud in there.
Yes.
And it's really hard to hear the officer.
Yes.
Asking questions.
Yes. And background noise is right behind you,
Yes.
coming at you. And the officer, one person is talking quietly like
Yes.
this, and you can't hear anything.
Yeah, so you cannot. And the applicant gets frustrated because, they're they're immigrants, okay? English is not their first language. They're stressed.
They've studied very hard.
They've studied
They have
very
to
hard.
memorize 100
Yes.
questions and answers.
Yes. And then there's this new thing where they have to write down the English
Yes.
sentence on the
iPad.
The iPad. So now my client had to write it down, I think 5 or 6 times because officer couldn't capture it on the computer. Although on my side of the screen, it looked totally fine.
Right.
I'm like, what's there not to capture? And the officer was like,
But the officer is not able, this is how ridiculous the thing is. They're not able to get up and go look at the screen.
Yes.
To say, yep, you wrote it correctly. Oh, no.
Yes.
No. Technology must be used.
Yes.
So they can't capture.
yes, that is true. So now, hopefully, this stage is done and you are sent to the 2nd or 3rd floor.
I want to add one more thing they do
Sure.
downstairs is they ask you all of your personal information.
Oh, they do.
Plus all of your criminal history, arrest record, all of those questions. You have to talk about it in front of everyone. And, what's to stop someone from sitting behind you? They're only a foot away and writing down your name, your social security number, your address, and your date of birth.
Nothing stops.
Identity theft.
Exactly. Identity
You go to
theft,
become a
right and
citizen,
left,
and
yes.
your reward is to have your identity stolen.
That is true.
No. So then you go upstairs. So you're not done yet.
You're not done yet. So after all that time of waiting and going from one window to another and struggling through the, all the noise and trying to figure out how to use the new electronic devices, after all that, you go to the upper floor and you wait. And now you wait until your case is called by the immigration officer who will bring you back to their office. And now it will remind you about the interview, how it used to be in the past. Now, in the very private environment with closed doors, officer will start asking exactly the same questions as they asked you numerous times downstairs.
Yes.
What they told me was also that if they can, if everything looks good downstairs, because you go to one window and you talk about your application, are there any, I guess
How many
updates,
Changes, any updates,
changes.
yes.
yeah,
But
and
this is
then
what
you go
they
to the
ask you
next
about
window
this.
to do your test, and then supposedly what they told me was if you're good to go at that point, then you can just you
I
can
don't
just
know.
you'll just get approved at that point.
About security
upstairs
questions.
do not do that. The officers are still not catching on of what their job is upstairs. So most of the
Yeah,
times
that's
I
true.
have these appointments, we go through everything again from the very beginning.
Yes, that is true.
Yes.
It's crazy.
And I can't
Changes
say
that they
anything.
captured downstairs.
Yes, it's all been done. So they review the application is 20 pages.
Yeah, that application and the adjustment application, I literally sometimes I'm
I know my
they ask
patience
you
level is
every
going down. I'm just
question. It's every question.
Yes.
I mean, there's 7 pages of questions about have you worked
have
in a
you
prison camp?
recruited
Are you
child soldiers? Have you?
Yeah, I mean, just on and on and on and
Clearly,
on.
this person has not done these things. I mean,
Yeah.
if they're anyway,
Well, they already indicated on their application under oath.
right.
But still, yeah.
So the officers seemed upstairs at that Nats interview. They seem to be going through it again. The most recent one I did the day we were both there. Thankfully, the officer did not do that. We didn't have to answer everything again. Just the ending questions about which is affirmative, understanding the oath
Yes.
of allegiance and things
Were
like
your
that.
applications approved?
No, not at that point. They said, we'll let you know. We have to finish our security checks.
Yeah,
I think they
because I
are
have-
going to be approved,
I
but
have
they
so
didn't
many-
tell us
yeah.
again.
How many applications for naturalization or adjustment do you have pending 6 to 8 months or more? I have many.
Most?
Many. I mean, yeah.
Right
and I'm
now,
not saying
yeah.
I'm not saying things aren't getting approved. These are I'll just say these are letters that are the cards that I write. We're on video, but I just say I
Show it.
send
That's neat, Elizabeth.
I send my clients a congrats or thank you card or whatever
Oh,
it
this
is.
is
But
beautiful.
I love
yeah, so
that.
I'm
Yeah,
just,
the
And it's
design
her
is
signature
amazing.
color.
yeah, I'm just saying, and I'm redoing my logo, but and my website. But just to kind of be okay, we are still getting things done.
Yes.
Congrats. This is amazing. Even in this time, so I'm doing this for clients. But there are so many other clients that, we're not really serving them properly. We're not getting things done. And it's like, but the options that we had for follow-up are just not there.
No, they're not.
So
basically my two options now are senator or U.S. representative, or the client has to sue.
Federal
They have to
lawsuit.
file mandamus. And nobody wants to file that. It costs thousands to do the work.
It's expensive.
Yes.
I mean,
Exactly.
I just, and for naturalization, you actually have a cause of action per regulation if the application's pending for more than 120 days. So,
But clients are so scared.
I know.
Most of them.
are.
I have yet to convince a client. I have to be more persuasive. Let's
we're
sue
doing
them.
it. No.
I'm actually preparing a mandamus now.
Good for you.
For somebody who has his 751 pending for almost 10 years.
Oh my word.
751.
I hope the judge and the prosecutor just really rips them a new one.
Yeah. And the problem with this case is that once upon a time, there was a lawsuit in federal court about the marriage fraud that was brought in against my client and his spouse. Okay. The case was dismissed by the federal court. Now, what happens next? USCIS
Just sits on it.
sits on it and doesn't know what to do. They're like, oh, there was allegation of fraud. Yes, but at the same time, federal court dismissed the case.
Yeah.
What's there not to understand?
Thank you.
What's there to
Good
be
job,
confused
Alicia.
about?
Yes.
I mean, you should just go.
They don't want to do it. They don't want to do it. And I have to say, USCIS recently redid its motto or its logo.
Oh,
and
yes, that's funny.
I think that is so telling. They took out
very
the service
descriptive.
component. There used to be something in there about serving our customers, and they took that away.
Well, we used to have meetings through the liaison with the local office back in the day. Like I was, and like really wonderful relationship. Like really, they would come to our luncheons. Did any of you guys
was
go to the luncheon?
collegial.
Did you guys go to
Yes.
the luncheon on Friday?
No, I
Yesterday.
couldn't.
Okay. But our bar association, they would come to the luncheons. They would talk.
Yes.
Yeah.
Way back when there was a softball game.
Oh, yeah.
Where lawyers would play officers. I mean, that's how collegial it was.
Yeah.
The officers knew that the lawyers were trying to help their clients do their cases. They knew that their job was to adjudicate cases in a fair and consistent manner.
And it's not like all the individuals are bad now. I mean,
No,
like, there's
absolutely.
still some good
I think
individuals
some
working
officers
there.
are really struggling through
But
this.
yeah, and I feel like they're. Yeah, I mean, I feel
I
like
think it's just, how USCIS right now is positioned not like a benefits agency.
I agree.
But a police agency.
Yes.
And
It's like
they're so
one step away
aggressive.
from the court.
Exactly.
It's like, how many people can we move over?
Yes.
Yeah.
Because, for example, during that conference that we've been mentioning several times today, in Berlin, we had how many? 3 consular officers from the, so it was U.S. consulate in Berlin, Frankfurt, and Munich. So 3 different officers.
we had 4. We had 4 different
had
officers
4.
that came
Yeah,
and
we
talked
had
with
4.
us.
Yeah, so they all came, and they all have their respective areas of consular processes where they have certain distinguished reputation, where they were able to tell us exactly what they want to see from the applicant who applies for a non-immigrant visa or immigrant visa, or division of the tourist visa versus
And that's
business
all
visa.
we want to
Yeah,
know.
and we actually
Yes.
got to tour the consulate.
Yes.
So we got to see they had a brand new consulate in Berlin. We got to see how they print
their visas.
The visas.
Ooh.
And they have special paper, and they have to keep it.
Yeah.
They document it. If they make a mistake, they've got to
Oh, I'm
Yeah.
sure.
register that.
So
whatever.
they register
But
the numbers in the
use-
morning, and at night when they close the embassy,
They count and
they
they, go
check
through
those
it all.
numbers. That's very
But-
interesting.
But yeah, and there's one person in charge, and they use a regular Epson printer.
Yes, yes.
And they're
It's
just
nothing
printing.
fancy,
It's
yeah.
nothing like it goes off to a special place.
Yeah, I
and
thought it
it's
did. I
there.
thought it was
It's like any of our law firm offices, and then
Yeah.
they've got the consular chief has to have a glass office so she can have line of sight.
And
Which
it's
is
interesting
really
because she has a
interesting.
corner office.
Yeah.
And she can actually have her eyesight both ways. Like, you know,
Wow.
the entire office, she sees like right and left, all those piles of desks and all those piles of people who just sit and work,
Yep.
including officers who interview people, like, you know, through the glass window. She can see all of them.
Yeah, and the
fantastic.
consular, like the
You know, that's a good
consulates-
thing because that's going to hopefully cut down on shenanigans.
Yeah,
that may
and the
happen.
consulate, you can't bring your phone in, you can't bring a Fitbit in. Like we had to like leave all of our phones like in the bus.
Okay.
Like if you had a, you know, so they're, you know, it's high security, but they were really accommodating for us. So it's really telling to be when you can go on those tours. And there's a lot of, you know, the American Citizen Services that they do.
Yeah, I
was
wanted to mention
really
that too.
interesting.
Yeah.
They do, and I actually went. So I actually went. After the Berlin Conference, I went to Prague and I met a friend, and she had just been relocating to Frankfurt. So she's selling her house in Atlanta, and she's moving the whole family there. And she was like, "I'm closing on my house, but I didn't get the like power of attorney or whatever." I'm like, call Frankfurt, get an appointment. They have American Citizen Services. They will notarize the whatever you need for the closing. They also do it for divorces. And then they also do like any displaced U.S. citizens that are there, like, either they lose their passport or sometimes there's some victims of crime or there's mental illness. They work to get people back to the U.S. It's crazy the stuff that
how
they
important
do.
the situation is, right?
So they're taking care of American citizens.
What I found pretty fascinating is that if the American citizen is abroad and in need, let's say they got robbed, all their belongings, they don't have money on their account to return back to the U.S., the U.S. Embassy will try to get in touch with their friends and family first in order to secure a ticket for them. So if there's no money on the other side and nobody can help them to purchase a ticket, then American government will purchase them a ticket for future reimbursement. So this person will have to reimburse the government later when they're securely back and they're
they won't be able to get a new passport, until they
yes.
pay.
Until they pay.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well,
But I
that's
think
fair.
it's just it's just so fair because you understand that you're not left alone in a foreign country, with no means of returning back to your home. Rather, U.S. Embassy will take care of you and send you back, and then you'll figure it all out and pay back the amount of the airfare, which is pretty amazing too.
That is pretty amazing. Do you guys feel like you're that for your clients? Like, I'm not going to leave you alone in this. I'm going to take care of you and work with you and walk with you through this case that we're going through. It
I
feels
always
the
tell
same
that.
way.
I
Yeah,
always
I'm
tell
trying
that to my clients. I mean, and I'm just like, and if something goes wrong, I was like, and that's what I tell them in the initial consults. I'll be like, the worst thing that's going to happen for the most part is like a delay. We may have to do something over, like the worst case scenario. Like, we'll get this through. I promise you. But it's just, and there are no guarantees sometimes.
Right. Yeah.
I mean, now I'm finding I've had a couple denials at the embassies. We got an H3 approved, and they just will not give her the visa.
I actually
Won't give her
wanted
the
to
visa for the
share
training
something.
program.
We actually had a discussion about the E2 visas also. We had a panel, a very good one.
E2 is a treaty investor visa.
It is treaty investor visa, which is great. And the U.S. has numerous bilateral treaties with foreign countries, allowing foreign nationals to purchase a business in the U.S. or open a startup or purchase part of the business.
Money, and then invest money that's at risk, and then bring employees that are either managers or specialists.
Yes.
So basically, start a business in the U.S. to the benefit of our country.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I just had this experience where my clients this past week had an interview in the U.S. Embassy in Moldova. And what happened, the instructions on the website say that you have to bring the entire filing with all the supporting documents to the interview. Now, we contacted the embassy ahead of time, asking them to provide us additional instructions on how to submit the packet. They tell us, take it with you to the interview. So during the interview, the officer is like, so you haven't submitted those documents before? I haven't seen them. I can't make a decision. I don't know anything about your business. I would have to take it. So refusal to 21G, admin process that we all know may take forever. And people right now are like, what happened? We've been sitting on this package for so long. Like, we could submit it to whoever.
Yeah.
Whoever wanted to take a look at it.
So on the embassy website, there's no directions.
There's no
submitting
direction
for registration in advance.
And then
No, they
she
said you have
asked,
to
and
bring
they
it.
said, "Bring it."
Yes, I have an email.
I hope you printed out the email and were like,
I did.
"Mm."
I actually, yesterday, I sent inquiry back to the U.S. Embassy in Moldova, attaching the 221G refusal along with the letter from the embassy saying that we have to bring the entire package at the time of the interview. And like, what all that means.
Right.
Please explain.
What are you
please,
doing?
Like, what do you do? How do I fix it? How do I avoid situations like that in the future? Because I predicted this. I knew that
Of course,
it's not
they can't make a
logical.
decision
exactly.
at that moment.
They have to investigate the business. They have to see what's going on. Like, it's an initial filing, so there's a lot of work to be done prior to visa issuance. And now we're in this admin process.
Are
Administrative
you guys
processing.
seeing a lot more administrative processing?
Yes.
I'm seeing.
Yes.
So
I have
feel
an O1 top of the line sports person that is stuck in admin processing. Approved
How
O. Let's see.
Where is he
It's been
from?
3 months. Ukraine.
Yeah.
Ukraine, stuck in Ukraine. He's clearly qualified. The company is one of the best in the United States. Everything's perfect.
Yeah.
He's too young to have a history. So, and they just have it there. And
I remember one of those cases. I had a P1 approved, and then sent the person to undergo interview in Moldova. And the person back then resided in Italy, but he was a citizen of Moldova. So we decided that, we contacted the embassy in Italy, and they said, no, he needs to go to Moldova to get his visa, the P1 visa in Moldova. So he goes to Moldova, and U.S. Embassy there says, oh, you do not reside here, you reside in Italy. And he's like, no. So Italy said specifically to go to Moldova. And they're
Right.
like, oh, so you also a citizen of Russia? He's like, yeah. So you have to go to Russia. We cannot adjudicate that. We're like, okay.
they just don't want to do their job. I don't know.
Yes. We contact U.S. Embassy in Russia, ask them whether they're going to accept that filing. They say yes. So he goes to Russia and he gets denied his P1. Now I get in touch with their first line supervisor asking them, what's the matter? Like, why do you deny the P1 where we have everything approved? Everything is legit. It's an athlete joining the team. Everything is beautiful. And now they say we just do not believe that he's going to come back.
Oh, okay.
We got involved, the congressional help. And with their assistance, we were able to reverse this denial. It was great success on our end.
How did you do that?
We got in
Who
touch.
did you get? I mean, because I'm trying. I have that same.
The team was registered
Yeah.
in California.
Okay.
So I found Democratic congresswoman. We contacted her. I explained her what is going on. I mean, not her directly,
Yeah.
but the immigration assistant. I explained her that this is a really important big team registered in California, and they need this person. They sponsored him, and we got it all approved. It's all legit. We have a contract. We have everything piling up. And the problem is, with all those athletes, they do have seasons.
Yes.
So they have to be in the U.S. In the beginning of
That's
the
what
season.
I'm facing too.
Yes. If they miss the beginning of the season, they do not get in shape on time. They did not get involved with the team or play or get into proper training. So what happens, they just, they lose their relevance for the season to come.
And they're on hold.
And they're on hold.
Yep.
So all that, instead of coming in the beginning of January, this person came only mid-March. But it was still great success because we were able to reverse it.
Wow. Good job, Alicia.
Thank you. But what I'm saying, it requires you a lot more to get it done.
Everything does.
Everything.
Everything is twice as hard, it feels to me.
First, they tell you to go to 3 different embassies, and then he gets denied, and then you still fight to bring them.
Yes. So I feel like there's more to come. I think there's an old saying, first they came for this group, then they came for the next group, and it's just coming right on down the line. So I feel like the next group that we're going to start to see changes on are possibly our 751s and our K1s with the interview requirement. Because right now, for those, K1 is a fiancé visa, 751 is a married couple who's removing conditions on permanent residence. And so both of those cases right now, they do not require an interview. You only have an interview if they have additional questions about the relationship or they feel like something strange,
You mean a K1
things like
adjustment?
that. Yes, K1 adjustment. So someone with a K1, that means they've come in, they've gotten married, they filed their green card application.
We just got one scheduled.
I think that that's going to be the next thing.
I don't do a lot of K1s, but just have one scheduled for
It's
June.
unusual. It's unusual, but I've started to predict to my clients, right now there is no interview requirement. If you send in good documentation, like my latest K1 client, they had a Disney resort destination wedding and they're living in wedded bliss. So, it's clearly a real marriage, but I think with the processing time of a year, they could definitely be called for an interview. And we could start to see that every single one of those cases is going to have an interview in Atlanta. Yeah. And the unintended...
Talking about the delays in education,
I was about to say,
right?
that's the unintended consequence is that they have not hired any new officers. So the same little group of officers down there, they already have a higher workload. And I think that, that's my prediction.
Well, we already know that what used to be 2 to 5 months at the most for a marriage case interview, it's now been a year. I've actually started to get some a little bit. We were seeing a year for
8
now.
months.
Now I've seen some a little bit.
Yeah, a little
quicker.
less than a year. Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
so
I
that's
think
good.
on
but
average,
I think
it's about a year.
with the stringent standards of all these different cases we've been talking about, that I think that the family groups, the immediate relatives, are next on the list of a certain bald man in Washington who sits behind the throne. So, okay, there's a lot going on in immigration world, and I think we've had a lot of sad stories to tell today where things are taking a really long time and it's really tough. But my takeaway from today is that none of us are quitting. I am not quitting at all. And they can do whatever they want, but this is not stopping me from taking care of my clients, protecting them and defending them and making sure that they get that benefit that they are eligible to receive. So I'm just still fighting the good fight.
So are you going to be like the only lawyer?
Yes.
So you're
I'll be a solo.
Pure solo.
Yep, a solo with a team. Mm-hmm. Jean's going to have a transition time because when you're an immigration lawyer, you just can't stop on a dime. Mm-hmm. So she's got to wind up a lot of these cases that are, waiting for interviews and things like that. But yep, I'll be the one taking all the new cases.
That's exciting.
Yeah, it is exciting. I'm tickled.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. I know that's what I'm struggling with right now is just like managing my law firm and
how many lawyers do you have, Elizabeth?
3.
3, okay.
Including me. But just managing my law firm and I'm in an entrepreneurs group, so I'm looking at things where it's how do I run this as a business?
Right.
And not, it's kind of hard to wear those 2 hats.
Yes, this is the biggest challenge.
Yeah,
definitely is.
And you're about to embark on that.
Right. As a business, you have to keep the lights on. But if all of your cases that we're a flat fee business, so we don't charge every time a client has a problem or a phone call to us or anything. We're flat fee, and so cases are taking longer and longer. It's really making me reevaluate.
Oh,
good.
Yeah.
I'll talk to you about fees.
That.
Okay.
Yes.
No, because we are.
It's
fees,
just not working anymore.
Yeah, our fees have increased, and they have to because it's the amount of time we spend on cases. So, but I've had
right here. Can I have the sheet, Penny? Go ahead, Elizabeth.
Oh, I was just saying, like, I've had some people contact me, for the H-1B. We're talking about these challenges to the H-1B program, and people have contacted me. I have one, and they have, their IT, and they're going to have all these issues, but the attorney's fees that that their current lawyer, I guess they're looking for new, so there must be something wrong. They're looking for a new lawyer, but, the attorney fees that they're charging for H-1Bs are 1/3 of what I charge, for each H-1B. So
Yeah.
for me, if I took, and I'm like, I would love to have your business, but I'll lose money.
Right.
Because I know how many hours
It's
I need to
untenable.
spend.
Yeah.
And
for
I
some
just,
reason, historically, this is how I feel. Immigration attorneys kind of undercharge.
We always have.
Yeah.
Yeah. But
For-
now it's just to the breaking point. We can't keep doing that.
Yes, we cannot keep floating with the same approach to the fees.
I
Actually,
agree.
in fact, I had this client this week, corporate client, who said, every time when I see your bill, I'm puzzled because we work with several different attorneys. So every time I see your bill, I'm puzzled how you keep floating. It seems like you charge so little in comparison to other attorneys in different industries
Yeah.
because they work with
Yeah,
attorneys.
we do. And I think
representing
that's
them.
part of our caring nature and that kind
And
of
I'm
thing.
like-
But we have to be businesswomen
No,
as well.
yeah.
What do you suggest? Because we can revise this whole thing.
I'm happy
like
to
right
have
on
a
the spot.
discussion. I'm happy to have that
I
discussion.
think we
with
should definitely
anybody.
talk about this.
Because because I think you really have to. Everybody's a mom here. I mean, we're getting into this is still the immigration topic, and how immigration lawyers are dealing with things. But everyone's a mom, so I just look at the time that I'm spending in the office working as time away from my children, and how valuable is that to
For
me?
all of us,
It is
yes.
definitely.
So
Definitely.
and of course, we really do have to spend a lot of time on cases. Paralegals can't do this stuff now.
Yes,
Yeah.
that is true.
The request for evidence, it's too. It is not. I mean,
All
you can
became
write
so
out the
technical.
You can write
Yeah.
out the processes, and you can do everything, and have a process-based,
But the
systems
actual
in your office.
analysis
But there,
must be done by you.
there are too many things that need an experienced immigration attorney to work on for hours. So you just have to charge what you're worth, and people have to understand, this is kind of the nature of the beast right now. And I'd rather,
I'll tell you this little tip that I incorporated in my letter of engagement. So now I have a number of special stipulations because what I found is that when you sign letter of engagement, a contract for the legal representation with a client, and you outline the flat fee, you outline certain case that they retain your services for, right? So now on top of that, they also want you to do this and this and this and this and this, right? So all that extra I outline in the special stipulations right after the flat fee. So I say, if you want this, it's going to cost you this. Like let's say change of address, you did not want representation at the interview or preparation for the interview.
Yeah.
I'm going to do that. If you did not tell me about the income issues and now you need a joint sponsor.
Oh, I like
I'm
that.
charging
Joint
for
sponsor.
this.
Ooh, good job,
If
Alicia.
the joint sponsor is employed as a W-2,
But
it's going to
can
be
you-
this amount, but then it's going to be more if this person owns a business.
Yes.
Can you keep track of all of that?
Yes,
though?
and I keep track of each and everything. And the last special stipulation, I just added one when I came back from the conference. So now I have the other legal services that are charged on per hour basis.
Yes.
Yes. Me too.
And I have another one that calls for reassessment of the fees if the client sits on a case longer than 6 months.
Because the rules can change.
Yes.
That's what
I love it.
That is what I need to do because I'm non-responsiveness of clients
Yes.
is crazy. Because
I reserve the right to increase the fees if there's an action on the side of the client for 6 months or longer.
Yeah. Well, I think it is time for us to give our names again and our contact information. I've really enjoyed our show today, ladies. You have been listening to Beyond the Border radio show with WCEG. Thanks for tuning in. My name is Audra Doyle, and next month I will be Doyle Law in Brookhaven, Georgia. My phone number is 404-325-5858.
And I'm Elizabeth Garvish, and I work with Garvish Immigration Law Group. I actually own Garvish Immigration Law Group. Our website is www.goimmigrationlaw.com.
My name is Oleisa Gorinshteyn. I'm with Gorinshteyn Global, where we represent clients in immigration and personal injury. Our contact information is 404-618-0808. And if you'd like to find us online, it's going to be www.gogloballaw.com. Thank you.
Great. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks.
Great show today. And thank you to our producers.